It's 5. Shall I begin?
Ma'am, we are waiting just for more people to join.
Okay. So you will give me a clue when I should begin? Will you give me some hint or some message?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. There's a small introduction planned, so after that you can continue.
Okay. I'll wait till then.
And guys, those who are watching us live, please invite all your friends to join. We will begin shortly.
I'm waiting with a cup of tea. Come soon.
Good evening, one and all. I am Lakshmi Kole, the president of KLETech IUCEE student chapter. We are extremely delighted to welcome you all to our first tech talk on how to conduct as an Industry 4.0 engineer. You all must have heard about Industry 4.0 as the next big thing going around. So we, the KLETech IUCEE student chapter, present a super informative session not to be missed at all. We are joined by the students from various colleges and universities and would like to thank all of you for being present here. Since this is our first tech talk, so who better to mentor session than Ms. Sampada Pachaury? Ma'am is currently serving as a Global Industry Advisory Member with IUCEE. She is a postgraduate in VLSI Design from IIT Delhi and has worked with ST Microelectronics, Catania, Sicily and Agrate, Italy. So without wasting any more time, I will hand over the session to Sampada ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lakshmi, and thank you to all those students who have made it despite their other academic commitments. And I hope I make the next 1 hour worth your time. because it should make you feel that you have a lot of takeaway after attending this tech talk. Of course, the intention here is to see what we can do to prepare you for the times ahead. Uh, this is not a new subject. All of you have been listening to Industry 4.0 and the various ways you should be getting ready for Industry 4.0 by many people every single day. Ever since you probably got into engineering, the conversation around Industry 4.0 has been spinning and rolling. So you may feel that it is a very common topic, but there is a reason why everybody seems to be talking about it, and it is never enough, especially because we are at the start of Industry 4.0, and it is not something to happen. It has already happened. So through this session, I'll kind of take you first to what we really mean, and in a very, very simplified drawing, I will take you to what Industry 4.0 actually is looking like, and then some essential points which will be very beneficial for you, irrespective of which branch you are in or whatever you decide to do. And these are such kind of tools that I will share, which will help you in any circumstances, inside your work life, outside of your work life, which is basically to say, it will make you a much better human. So just like there's a tagline of Raymond's, right? The complete man. They have a tagline. So I'm not making a claim that I'll make you a complete man. No such outburst statement or claim that I'm making, but it will give you insight into what does it really mean to be a complete engineer. And so without any delay, I'll share my screen. I have a presentation which I would like to share with all of you as I navigate my conversation around those topics, right? So if you're able to see my screen, just one person could just give me a verbal cue that my screen is visible. I assume it is. Then I will begin my talk.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Perfect. And the audio, everything is fine, right? The audio and the video both are good.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. So I'm associated with IUCEE Foundation. I did my master's in VLSI design, as Lakshmi introduced. I was working with the semiconductor field for 17 years, both with ST Microelectronics as well as Micron Technologies Inc., and also with Sankalp Semiconductor, which happened right where you are. In fact, Vivek Pawar and I have a long history now, and I was heavily influenced with him. And the reason I'm doing this talk with you today, the seed to that was sowed by none other than Vivek himself. Until then, I was purely into my semiconductor field. I was only doing the technical managerial roles, working within my own field, never looking around with other domains, what's going on and what's happening in the industry. Absolutely no interaction with students or academia. But it was thanks to Vivek that the idea that we have to look at organic growth of our own people in our own country began. And although I have not been working with him for more than 4 years now, but the journey began and it continues and it becomes stronger and stronger. And now I'm associated with Indo Universal Collaboration for Engineering Education with Krishna. All of you know who Krishna is. You know his force. He's like a huge force. He's doing this transformation, and it is so good to join him or collaborate with him and take this force further, which is why I'm talking to you. So we'll begin this conversation with a very small story, a few words story about Sir James Dyson. I don't know how many of you have heard of him, but you will know who he is now. Um, the reason we put Sir before his name or as an address is not because he's an elder gentleman, but because he was given this title by the Queen. Of course, he belongs to Great Britain, and that's where it comes from. So this sentence is something which is put on his website, In case you have heard of, Dyson is one of the world's best vacuum cleaners, which is available for domestic as well as industrial use. And this sentence, I will read it loud. So, at school, I opted for arts, put off by all the formulae in science. There was nothing that combined the two like design engineering does. So, design engineering is basically a combination of arts and science. That's what he's trying to say. I only stumbled on engineering by accident. So, he did not really go into engineering for a degree. He stumbled on engineering by accident and immediately decided what I wanted to do. And what is that? Make things that work better. That's a very small summary of what we all are entitled to do or entitled to be. So that's Sir James Dyson. He never had an engineering degree. He was actually studying in the London College of Arts in the designing side of furniture and other things. At one point, he got so frustrated with the air and the vacuums which were functioning in his industry, and the way they would get clogged, that he got that suddenly it struck to him that I'm going to do something myself, and I'm going to make my own vacuum cleaner. And he had recently worked on devices which were sort of like a precursor for what he was about to do. He had worked on centrifugal forces, and he decided to apply his science into inventing this vacuum cleaner for domestic as well as industrial use, which is now branded as Dyson. And I am one of the owners of it. Um, and what I really want to tell you is that it took him 5,127 prototypes before he got to the final correct design that he really wanted to. And what was that final correct design was? Number one, of course, he made it bagless. So there is a there's a capacity where all the dirt gets collected, and he was able to use centrifugal force to separate the finest dust particles from the air so that he could throw back purified air and retain the finest dust particle into this vacuum. And that's the technology that he invented. He was never an engineer. So this story must mean something to you. This is the drawing of the latest model of domestic vacuum cleaner, which I also own. The reason I want to show you this is to demonstrate the excellence that you can attain in engineering. So besides you becoming an engineer, there has to be a quality associated with it. And the excellence here, if you see, so it is to be used by anybody and everybody, right? He plans to have his vacuum cleaner being operated by anybody. So he has to make it as simple as he can. So now look at some of the features. Do you see all the red spots here? Anything that's red is actually sort of a code, which means that this is a button for some action. Anything which is not red is not really for a user to operate or split or break or separate. The only places is the red buttons which you see. That's where there is an action. That's a simple notification, a very, very simple way for people to really know that we have to do something here. In case you have played with Lego or toys which are similar to Lego, you would understand that this is how easy he made the various attachments for this. So it does not require powerful handling, does not require sophisticated handling. Anybody who has ever played with Lego can actually put in all the various accessories or change them and use to operate it. The finish of this whole product is, of course, by itself an artistic and aesthetically done thing, but the way the science of how the air moves and how the separation happens and how the purified air comes closer to the face of the person who's operating it, that's brilliance, that's excellence. Another example you see here, you see a wall mount. Now, the way he has made it is he's gone to the way of thinking that somebody will be keeping this vacuum cleaner when it's not being used. So you can't just make something and not think about the entirety of it, right? That's what we call wholesome thinking and wholesome solution providing. So when the vacuum cleaner is not being used, he created a mechanism and a kind of a mount, which is super intelligent again, because what you can see here and what you cannot really see because it goes behind that mount is how the electric connection wire comes from behind, gets nicely routed so it never gets entangled with other parts or anything else in your house. It goes neatly into it, and when you put the head of the vacuum cleaner, it sits straight on the charging lead, so there is no chance of the lead going in any other angle but getting straight on the charging lead. So this is how the design of the mount is made. Now various accessories can get lost. Somebody would leave one accessories here or another one here, so all these attachments, he created a design where all these attachments can nicely snugly fit in one place, so they don't get lost and they don't go here and there in different rooms of the house. That's the brilliance I'm talking about. And last but not the least, look at the packaging at the bottom of the slide, how it should be transported from the factory to the user without causing any damage. The way the various parts have been neatly snugged in a smallest possible package is another sign of engineering. It is not something which was done by a non-engineer. The packaging itself is an example of excellence in engineering. So I know I took a little longer to elaborate this story, but what I'm trying to tell you all is we have to aim and strive for this kind of excellence. That's what will make us who we are. This gentleman, Sir James Tyson, he did this in 1978, and today James Tyson is a name for excellence. Now let's come back to the Industry 4.0, because that's so. This is a very small diagram. I've tried to simplify to explain what generally is about Industry 4.0 and what makes it different from Industry 3.0, right? So it's all about computing, it's all about data, it's all about interconnectedness. Now, just look at the bottom when you see modular physical systems. Keep in mind there are two words here, modular and physical systems. Physical systems is anything and everything which is a device or an appliance which we have around us. It could be a car, it could be a refrigerator, it could be an aeroplane, it could be anything. Those are physical systems. The reason I call them modular is because that's where the technology is moving. The things are being made or designed in a way that one thing can easily assemble into another. Let me give you a very direct example from a smart home. So, when we talk of a smart home, really what does it mean? That I'm able to do a lot of my things by talking to those devices. So there is a refrigerator, there is an air conditioner, there is a garage, there is a car, and I'm able to use those functionalities by way of certain remote instructions which are issued through my mobile phone or my laptop or my PC, let's say, right? Now, what are those things that can be done? And if there is an upgrade, how can they be plugged in without me having to really reinvent or replace one of those devices? That is what we mean by modular. So it's an easy plug and play kind of a system. That's how we upgrade. And that's what the physical systems, which you see at the bottom, is all about. Now, this is something which is coming from as a legacy from Industry 3.0. The only thing which has changed from 3.0 is the modularity of it. Hmm? What happens next is that we have lots of sensors and electronics which is sitting on top of these physical systems, which is continuously monitoring the operation and collecting the data from these physical systems. This data then eventually reaches the cyber network, the cloud, where all this data is being fed. Eventually, there is a system which is what we call as a cyber physical system, which is looking at this data, collecting it, processing it, analyzing it, also discarding some data which is not useful. And there's a lot of processing or cloud computing which is going on, which is where artificial intelligence comes in, which is what we see here as cognitive computing. So the whole feedback from the modular physical systems all the way to the big data and the analysis and the cognitive computing happens. And then based on that, the revised instructions are followed back. That is what actually Industry 4.0 in the most simplified aerial view uh, to you. So I hope this was easy for you to understand. This is nothing but a set of connected devices which are talking to each other. Why? Because they are all sending data through sensors and through electronic devices, which is getting analyzed, processed, and then series of instructions are being generated, which are then sent back or relayed back. And that's how the whole story continues. Now, with this, of course, things which have become more and more important is about the security of this data, because everything now becomes connected and vulnerable. One gap can actually lead you to corrupt the entire system. The entire cyber physical system can be hacked or violated. Also, veracity, the truthfulness of the data, which data is to be taken, which data is to be rejected. That's another intelligence which sits at the level of big data, right? And then of course the stability of this data. So now, in case you're wondering that this is all about people who are in IT, what does a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer have to do with it? You have to understand, as I said, physical systems is where all the core domains are, and everything is now interconnected. So it is not something that is only specific to a particular domain or branch, but something which cuts across everything. It's all about engineering, right? This is one slide which I just inserted to explain modularity, but I think I have done that. But there is one more point here which actually comes from the other presentation, but I'll probably mention just for your knowledge, no other reason. So, so the point that I want to make here is, since we are now living in the times, and we will actually live more and more in such kind of times where devices will be talking to each other and things will be uh, connected through various devices, and we will depend on these devices for everything that we are trying to do. There is also a possibility of negative consequences, where these technology gets penetrated into everything that we do. So the whole idea of technology is not remote, not distant from us. It is something which defines how our day goes by. So of course there is a threat to how we operate, and will we ever forget to operate as human beings if everything is taken over by technology? And I will come to that point. I will come to alleviate that fear for all of you. For now, just know that this exists and this is a possibility. So I'm kind of now taking a branching out to some essential things that we always talk about. You must be burning with this talk about communication. Everybody seems to be saying communication, communication. What's the big deal, right? So the big deal about communication here is, and this data is from 2019, so it's not really an old data, that the issues with communication can actually cost a company in 1 year per employee an amount equivalent to $5,200. So that's the big deal about communication. That's the reason why everybody around you talks about communication. And I will make this point further clear. So let's see what are all the possible ways of communication. And I've not written speaking. I've written listening. I've actually erased the bullet which was about speech, and I replaced it with listening. So the first thing about communication is actually listening, which is what you all are doing right now. And I hope all of you are listening intently and you don't have something else which is running in your mind, right? So when we are listening, we have to simply listen. We have to stop doing anything else. We have to stop thinking about an answer to give back. We have to stop finding what is it that I'm going to speak next. You will get time to speak what when it is your time to speak. But when it is time to listen, it is time to listen. Just like you would want somebody else to listen to you, you need to listen. Now, listening here is not just only a thing which is what happens through your ears, but we are living in a time when we are actually being observant of every signal that we see around us. So, listening here is a much wider term. It's basically an observation which you receive from anything and everything which is around you. It could be devices, appliances, machineries, or people, human being around you. Listening here also means reading what somebody else has written to you, the text which comes to you. Then comes the oral expression, which is what I'm doing right now, where there's a language and I'm trying to express what I feel by speaking it out. So when I speak something, I cannot really delete what I have spoken. It's an instant thought process which is going in my brain, which tells me what is it that I have to speak next. The next word will flow out. Then comes written expression, where you have the ability to not only process your thought but also rethink and reproduce. Then comes the presentation. Presentation is again not just about this physical PowerPoint presentation, but how my body language is, what my expressions are, how my face looks, what my emotions are reflecting. And then comes the response. Response is nothing but how am I going to react to something that is happening around me. My responses are basically the reactions to the actions around me, right? So, in general, communication is an issue which is always given to engineering students. In fact, you must have noticed, or in case you have not, then let me tell you, in any other faculty of masters or graduation, nobody will talk about communication as much as they do to the engineering students. And in case you wonder why engineers are always asked to learn about communication skills, let's go to the point. Why did you choose to be in engineering in the first place? Most people, and I'm talking about Indian context only, but I think it is valid for other countries and other races and ethnicities as well. Most people who opt for engineering as a career are those who love to work with science and maths kind of subjects, who like things which are presented to them in a very logical, rational, measurable, and a very numerical form. They are very happy not interacting and socializing and not creating long sentences. They are very happy keeping things to the point in general and focusing more and more within themselves and their books or their laptops and mobile phones. And they generally try to avoid big gatherings and debates which are inconclusive, where there are multiple opinions, right? Because they always think that the world exists in binary, 0 or 1, and for them it's a very difficult situation to assume that no, there could be shades of gray as well. I'm not criticizing each one of you. It is a general pattern which has been observed all across. It applies to me as much. So this is a general trend, and when we say that, which also means that we try to stay away from situations which force us to speak or express or communicate something, which is where we actually tend to lose more and more on the communication skill or on the language side of the things. But the point I'm making to each one of you is that whatever we do, we need to be good with communication or telling or sharing what we have done. And if I take you to this slide, it will tell why. Here you see communication on one side and technical competency on one side. So if you are technically competent as an engineer, perfect. But if you have poor communication, you will probably see promotions and salary hikes, but they will be slower as compared to somebody who is not just technical competent but who also has a brilliant communication skill, or is has a good command of expression. You know, so if you want to have a better uh, success rate, you may want to not only work on your technical competency but communication as well. And obviously, somebody who doesn't have either is totally unemployable. And somebody who thinks he only would like to keep communication as his strength and who's not very good with technical competency, he can initially see a quick rise based on his communication skills, but when there is time to evaluate the performance on the at the workplace, that's when there will be a possibility for, because he can't go unnoticed for too long if he lacks technical competency. So for me, my message to you would be that you need to concurrently work on your technical competency and communication skills. Now, one more thing which I would want to emphasize on this slide is, number one, when you speak, keep in mind brevity. Just get to the point that you wanted to say in 1 minute. You don't need long hours or lengthy discussions to convey what you want to convey, and that is what comes with a good command on the language which you choose, whether it's Hindi or English or any other local language that you choose. Having a very strong command on the vocabulary and the language gives you the upper edge so that you can convey whatever it is in the very first minute, because that's where the attention span lies. Which is why, while you're preparing for engineering, you also need to focus on the language literacy. You cannot put it on the side saying, okay, English, theek hai, that doesn't matter for my degree. So probably this is what I'm trying to tell, why communication and language literacy can make or break your entire presentation once you reach a workplace. Some useful tips are given here, which is about what are the basic etiquettes at workplace. A good idea would for be, once you have reached the good level of language literacy and you're trying to communicate, you should know why you are trying to say something when you're communicating something. Most of the conversation that you do, if it is just happening on the spur and there is no evidence supporting it, that's not a good sign of an engineer conversation. So this slide actually focuses on communication not just in a general life, but more from an engineering aspect, that it is always good to talk something which can eventually be supported by evidence, by facts, by data, and it is not just an opinion, your personal individual opinion. Of course, it is also important that you say the thing at the right time when it matters. So, I mean, as much as it is important for you to communicate, it is also essential that you understand the right time of communication. Uh, Make sure that when you are communicating, you understand what the other person's ability to listen is, and accordingly you modify your speech. That comes with experience and smartness, and also being observant and being good listener. So when you have been a good listener, you know exactly what the other person would hear or comprehend, and which allows you to modify your language or your or statements. uh, Communication is also important, because when you're working and when there are conflicts, the only way to find a convergence of towards conflict or for negotiation, you need to know how to say it, what to say and how to say, so that you are able to cut the point across without being an offensive, without putting an offensive dialogue across. So all of these things are considered good etiquettes for a workplace communication. So this brings us to collaboration. So now, you would have understood you cannot do anything alone as a single warrior, right? So let me again give you a very small short story about chickens, and that's general chicken behavior which has been observed and studied. And this is, I mean, you can easily say that this story is relatable to workplaces and to colleges and to even inside the houses and all. The thing is, if you see, there is a big cluster of chickens around. there will always be few chickens who are aggressive, and there will be some which will be you know domicile or simpler and easier ones. There will always be like that, so what happens is, when you have a group of aggressive chickens and simpler chickens existing together, the aggressive ones will not allow the simpler ones to eat and take their feed properly. They'll keep poking them with their beaks. They'll keep disturbing them as and when, right? That's a very general aggressive and a bullish behavior that is observed. So as a result, what happens is that the aggressive chickens tend to become healthier, and can be seen as better chickens because they can give you more, more meat or more eggs, while the so-called good ones are the weaker ones who cannot give so many eggs and who cannot really give so much of meat. So in a workplace also, there will always be people who are aggressive. So it doesn't mean that the person who's aggressive is better than the person who is not aggressive, when it comes to technical or when it comes to merit. It's just that the behavioral pattern makes one superior over the other, right? Now, in a place where all of them are working together, coexisting, it starts to impact the productivity of the weaker ones. So the red zone is basically the aggressive kinds, and the green zone is those chickens which are the milder ones. In a workplace, green zone employees will begin to deteriorate in their performance. They will have lesser and lesser productivity coming out. They will get less recognition as a result, and so it becomes a poor show of performance, and it just spirals down on them, and they keep losing their confidence. And then a point comes when they lose their confidence so much that even though they started out as technically competent, they lose faith in what they can possibly do. And sometimes it can take a lifetime for them to get out of this lack of confidence. So it can be really, really dangerous. So the reason I made this story here is because if you already know, then you develop the ability to sense these signals, and you realize that you have to find a way around such people, and you do not have to let this affect your productivity, right? So going into a workplace with this kind of a knowledge and sensibility allows you to fight back better, right? So you can actually handle those bullish people who will eventually try to they might appear to you as collaborative people, but they're actually literally competing with you in one way or the other, in a very silent and subtle manner, which you will not perhaps never realize. So, the idea for an organization and people who are in the leadership positions is for them to understand this kind of a behavior. Of course, that's not for you right now, but organizations have started to pay attention to the human capital. The HR departments are becoming more and more alert about these things, and they are taking actions towards this. But it is better that you all also know that it is good to go in as collaborators. Each one of you has to develop the collaborative aspect of things rather than developing the competitive side of the things. It is better to use your competitive knack or skill when you're competing against an opponent outside of your organization, but within the company, or if there are people who are working towards the same goal, it is always better to unite and collaborate, right? Because that's the only way most of the chickens will come in the green zone, and there will be a gain in productivity. One productivity gain will actually allow others also to gain. This is one more example I want to take from the movie Lagan. It has been used in various management sessions. Again, I think I may have spoken to some of you about this, and you may feel that this is a repeat, but just be patient and hear me out. So in this movie, there is a do or die situation where Amir Khan has to form a team which can play cricket, and not only play the game but also win it. and that is the opponents are really strong. They know this game very, very well. They have been playing this while Amir Khan does not really have a team even. Forget about playing the game, right? So this is a big problem. This is a problem which can tell somebody to just run away and find another village or another community to start living, right? This is that magnitude of a problem, as I said, do or die situation. But this is also a situation where engineers can take this as an opportunity. So every time there is a problem, every time there is a challenge, it's actually to be seen with the lens of opportunity, and that's who we are. That's what our DNA is. I mean, if I do not see a challenge as an opportunity to grow and change, that means I'm not really worthy of being an engineer, even if I have a degree. So let's throw it into our system very, very strongly that we are made to accept problems and to find opportunities for further growth, right? And also, if we start taking it in that kind of a positive spirit, and then if we take it that, oh, we have no other way but to solve it, and if we go deep into the problem, we will actually find the solution lies somewhere within the understanding of the problem. And I'm not saying this just like that. I'm a living testimony to this. I'm sure most people who have done problem solving will agree that the solution is always found within the close root of the problem itself. Now, people who are faced with this kind of a situation, some of them will always be initiative takers. They will probably feel more responsible to come forward and take it upon themselves, while the others may be more suited to follow. So it is okay. Not everybody can be a leader and should feel bad if they are not yet a leader in this particular case. Eventually, you will realize everybody gets an opportunity to lead or become a leader one way or the other in one situation or the other. So do not take it heavy upon yourself. Do not feel boggled by the idea of leadership. It just happens bit by bit, simply based on the response mechanism you show to the opportunities or the challenges which are thrown at you, and how you start responding to them, and how do you take the resourceful approach to solve the problem with people around you. That's it. That's all. That's it. That can make you a leader. And the more and more you start practicing it, the more and more you will grow in your leadership skill. And a leader and the team typically sits together. So although one may wear the crown of being a leader and the other may just be the team members around them, but if you see it through a different lens, each team member who has a very specific role assigned to them, while they are all working towards a common goal, then all of those team members are also leaders of that role, of that task which is assigned to them. And they can further develop more and more people, more and more resources within them for that role as they grow. So it's a very hierarchical thing where you all work and strive towards the common goal. Each one takes the ownership. Each one knows that there is a common goal that we are trying to meet, where we are not really competing but collaborating with each other, where you trust that the other person is also doing what they should be doing, the best of that activity. I'm also putting in the best of my activity. He is doing what he has to do, I'm doing what I have to do, and we both trust each other to finally unite for the common outcome. We support each other if should there be a need, if one of the team members is actually not able to uh, come up to the demands of the work. We are able to keep each other completely up to date with what's going on. If we are able to look at ourselves and become better with respect to my outcome, with respect to your outcome, if I can always see myself as becoming a better version of myself today than I was yesterday, these are all the things which will allow me to work cohesively within a team. So we have now talked about um, James Dyson's story. We have talked about Industry 4.0 in a very simplified way. We have talked about two skills particularly. No, actually, three or four skills. We have talked about communication, we have talked about teamwork, we have talked about collaboration. So, let me take a break here and see if there are any questions so far. Uh, because there is, I think, one or two more skills that I will cover in the next few more minutes. But just to see if there are any questions till now, and it will be good if you give me some critical questions, things which challenge what I've spoken, or which get more out of me. Maybe I forgot that I had to say something. So feel free to write those questions and ask those questions, challenge me, and let's see if we can understand these skills better than what I have spoken till now. So, Lakshmi, are there any questions? Would you like to give a minute break so that we can take some questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question, ma'am. Won't it cause mass unemployment because of Industry 4.0?
Mass unemployment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, I know that's a very common fear and very, very justified fear. Uh, so, uh, unemployment will always be there, no matter which industry, which era we are talking about. The reason for most unemployment is not that there is lesser need for people, uh, but typically the bottom root cause of the situation is that the right skills don't match. So then it becomes a spiral. So let me give you an example from semiconductor field when I was, and this happened in 2016. So we were actually facing a severe downturn in semiconductor field around 2014 2016 period. This was a serious recession which was going on in the VLSI area, and many students, they actually thought that they should not go in for electronics as a branch because there are hardly any jobs. There is so much unemployment. There are already enough electronics engineers out there who are not yet fully absorbed. So they were, even if they got into electronics, they were preparing for IT roles, jobs in IT industry. I think some of you would agree with me on this. Now, let me tell you the inside story. I was inside this industry, right? So I was actually getting projects, and the projects which I got had very clear requirement of what the competency, what the skills of the people should be like. And I was looking for people all the time. I was looking to hire people who could match those job descriptions which were given to me. And trust me, on one hand there were people who were jobless, and there was, on the other hand, I did not get suitable resumes that I could match. And if I could see people who were a very distant match, and if I told my seniors and supervisors that it will take me 3 to 6 months to train them so that they can be given into the project work, they said no, we cannot wait for 6 months. They should be ready right now. We have to deploy them right now. And they stopped giving us projects eventually. So gradually the number of project requirements which were coming, they started to diminish, and we started losing them to other East Asian countries like Taiwan and Vietnam. And that's a real fact that I'm telling you. I personally lost several engineering projects because I could not find suitable people to match the requirements. And that is one of the reasons why I left the corporate to start working with students and to tell them the importance of being prepared, being job ready, which is what I've been doing for the last 4 years, making industry ready professionals. So now with that, the answer to your question would be that the unemployment doesn't happen like this. It's basically a mismatch of the needs from the industry and the readiness of the workforce. So if you just change the word unemployment, and if you just use a new term, which is what we call mismatch or lack of fitment of the technical qualifications versus what the industry needs are, then that is where the problem is. And Industry 4.0 is not really going to cause more unemployment, but it is going to demand people with a different skill set, different competency set. If we are able to successfully prepare you, which is why we are having this session today evening, if we are able to successfully prepare you, get you ready, then there won't be any unemployment. Otherwise, there will be. So I hope that answered your question. Any other question, Lakshmi?
Yes, ma'am. We have question. What is the scale of Industry 4.0?
Scale. uh, I'm not so sure I understood this. Like, what do you mean by scale of Industry 4.0?
Like future scope or maybe scalability?
Would the person who put this question want to uh, clarify what they mean by scale, so that I give a very appropriate answer and not just a guesswork? I'll be happy to take this question if it is clear as to what the scale here is referring to. Is it the number of jobs? Is it the, I don't know what the scale here refers to. Any other question?
Yes, ma'am. How long will it take for the factory or industry to recoup the cost of upgradation?
Okay, so I'm believing here again with an assumption that when you say upgradation, it is upgradation from Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0. So the question here is, how long will it take for an industry to upgrade itself from 3.0 to 4.0? So there is no one final answer to this, and there is no one final amount of time or duration that I can plug in and say, okay, this will take 1 year. It's not really like that. But the most common layman answer would be, as soon as industries start realizing this and begins the changes, the better for them to stay alive in the market, because those who will delay will obviously lose a lot of market revenue as a result. Now, what is the change that they need to make? So, for example, if it is a manufacturing industry, uh, we are moving towards automation. Like, a lot of automation is being pushed into the manufacturing industry. Now, of course, the question of unemployability comes back again, that if everything becomes automated, why would you need human staff to work on the workshop floors? Who will operate the machines? The robots will operate the machines, or there will be automated systems. Then why would a human being be needed? So we are going to have jobs getting lost. So yes, so here the industry upgradation means that they have to start training their workforce who was doing that kind of a button push job on these machines to also become more and more skilled with respect to the processing of the data that they collect. So if, for example, the company engages in upgrading their physical systems by making them more and more modular and by packaging them with lot of what we call as edge computing, which means collecting a lot of data and making the process to run smooth, to automate the whole process, then these people who are getting freed up need to actually sit back and be trained with another kind of a competency, which will make them the operators of these automated systems. So they will no longer be pushing the buttons, they will actually start analyzing the data. They need to have more cognitive skills being developed in them, so they can think how to further optimize, how to further automate. So industries will become better if they start using their own human workforce into helping upgrade their own physical machineries. And that's the only way for people not to lose their jobs, people to become better skilled, industries to move fast because they are not looking to hire people from outside with a different set of skill, but rather they are able to train their own people to operate the computers and various electronic systems. So it is better that more and more people get trained in various areas of cyber physical system needs, and that's what an industry should do for upgradation. The sooner the better. There is no such thing as how long. If they are already, if they have not yet started, they should start now. Any more questions on this? Did the person clarify the scale? What did he or she mean by the scale? Shall I continue?
Ma'am, we have a few more questions.
Yeah,
The
I'll
next
be happy
question
to
is,
take.
yes, ma'am, the next question is, how can everyone be convinced to migrate to the new ideas?
New ideas or to the new industry needs, I guess, right? Yeah. So I mean, nobody is going to come and convince you. I don't have the slide included here, but I can speak verbally to people who are listening. See, the industry 4.0 revolution has already begun, right? The things have already started to change. Uh, for example, now we are no longer going to depend on one person to die to donate their organs, because we are able to get organs printed 3D. By a 3D printed organs, we can do the transplants which are needed. Now, this technology is going to make life better. This technology is going to save a lot more lives which were otherwise lost waiting for a donor. So, can you stop that movement? No. Let me give you more examples. We understand the global climate issue is, beyond emergency now. And there are several factors which are contributing to environmental concerns. One of them being the production of meat. There is a huge population around the world which eats meat. Uh, some of them are eating meat because it is important for them, because that's the kind of region they live in and it is their essential. That's the only food they can eat, because they cannot grow vegetables, because they could be tundras with full of snow all the time. But then there are many people who are eating meat because it is a luxury for them. So the production of meat was increased, and that caused a lot of there's a lot of water and natural resources which go into making those meats. There's a lot of meat farming that happens. Now there are lab grown meats which are a suitable alternate for people to still eat meat and get the benefit and advantage of the meat, and but not really coming through an animal, but from a lab which is processing it with much less resources and very little impact on the natural resources. You can't really stop that. There are many people who are now conscious about uh, having a smarter home, for instance, or having autonomous vehicles, vehicles which can drive themselves, vehicles which do not use fuels, but they use electricity charged vehicles. We are working on technology for batteries. We need to have more and more production because there is more and more consumption. So the automation in manufacturing industry is the only answer to spike up the production. So you cannot really stop people from automating their industries or bringing in measures for better efficiency, better productivity, and lesser use. In the medical field, people have taken advantage of robotic surgeries, which eliminate a possibility of human error. So these are the changes which are happening already. You cannot stop these. So if any industry, any individual, any organization is still not convinced, then it is just their own loss. It's just for them to continue to grow, that they have to evolve, and they have to become the part of what this revolution is. Does that answer your question?
Ma'am, till then, can we take up the next question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
The previous question was, what is the scale of Industry 4.0? So the user has explained it. Which
Mm-hmm.
segments of industry will be affected by the advancement?
Okay, so the simplest, shortest answer is every industry is affected. Every possible thing which is, a service or a business or a production organization, every single thing is impacted. That includes, even the organizations with which work on humans and life sciences. Every single thing.
So that was the last question. I don't think we have any more.
Mhm. Okay, so should I move forward now? I think I'll try
Yeah,
to
sure,
wrap it
ma'am.
up quickly because it's already 6. So I'll try to wrap it up in the next 9-10 minutes, right? So,
Yeah, sure,
so
ma'am.
now we are talking about critical thinking and problem solving. So I'm sure it makes sense to you more now that what critical thinking and problem solving is with respect to the times that we are looking ahead. So it's basically means that don't just take what is given to you. uh, you have the not only the right, but you should have the ability to keep questioning. So the very first thing to develop is to start questioning. Why everything that is given to you or you read, you just start questioning. Why is it happening? Why is it so? Why did it come up as a result the way it is? So when you start questioning, that's the first step to develop critical thinking. And when you start this process of questioning, then you actually start discovering and exploring more and more. Then you start collecting a lot of data points. When you explore, you get more information that becomes your data points. That triggers inside your brain an activity to connect those data points and then derive something out of it. So critical thinking can begin with a very small simple thing as questioning, and you can do that anytime. For example, you go home today and you ask your mother what's cooking for dinner tonight, and she says, let's say she says sambar. So go ahead and question why. Now of course she may love you for this, or she may hit you for this, but just for the playfulness sake, start questioning why. Let her think, why did she decide to make sambar? So I know I'm giving you a very simple and silly example, but that's exactly how it begins. Start questioning why. And she might get into thinking, why did she decide to make sambar? And there will be a valid answer for that, trust me. And then when she gives you a valid answer that because she was planning to make idli today, then you say, why? Another question. So, of course, by the end, you will probably get beaten by her, but this will be an interesting game for you to play. And this is also something which tells you that a very in a very sweet manner you will learn that critical thinking, analyzing, takes you to the root cause of everything that is happening around us. And that's exactly what you will learn as a result, that there is nothing which is happening just like that. There is always a reason, which is why there is a problem, why it becomes a problem. And the critical thinking is the only way to go to the root cause of it, and that's exactly where the solution lives for that particular problem. The other thing here, when you start practicing this with your friends and peers, they may take it into offense, right? So always try to keep yourself detached from this scenario, and this will help you all your life, in all aspects of your life, if you keep yourself detached from whatever is happening, the problems, the solutions, the activities, the results, the meetings, the collaborations. Just keep yourself as an individual detached from it. Be an observer to things which are happening. Be a problem solver, because you are an engineer primarily. Do not go to people saying, oh, this is a problem, oh, that is a problem. Go with a solution. Always, when you go to somebody, go with a solution, and do not become the problem by continuing to simply crib and complain, oh, there is a problem, go, oh, there is a problem. And when you detach yourself, your mind becomes open. You do not take it as a personal attack upon yourself. You do not start putting illogical and irrational perspective to the discussion. With an open mind, you are able to accept lot of views which may not have occurred to you in the first place, which may be out of the box, which may be totally unique. So that's exactly how you develop and thrive with critical thinking, which helps you to be a better problem solver. This is a simple drawing which basically says that there is always a current state. I mean, uh, you can easily say that the current state is good. There is no problem with the current state. The sun rises in the morning, and I go to sleep in the night. This is my current state, and what's the problem with this? Oh, yes, there is no problem with that. But you may become wild and crazy and super silly, and yes, you can say that, oh, no, I don't like it this way. I want it differently. And you can make an imaginative, desirable future state. And then you may start working towards how to go from your current state to the desirable future state. But this was a very silly example, but in real sense, this is exactly how innovations get rooted. Again, for example, let me take cycling, which is what I do a lot. So, of course, there are two wheels, there is a pedal. We sit on the saddle, we have a handlebar, and that's a typical way the cycle looks like. And of course, there are geared cycles where you can even change the gear, which affects your operability of the cycle. So the cycle looks like that. That's the current state, and you can be mighty happy with that. But then you can say, oh, what if the cycle could go faster, right? Or what if the cycle could go on a hill without me having to pull too much? And that's where the desired future state begins to poke you to think that there is a gap which can still be filled. And that's where the innovation or opportunity to improve lies. And that's what you all need. Lifelong learning is another thing. I won't take too much time on this. I'll probably say that in fact, I'm one of the examples myself, and you will find many people around us. Every single day, I have learned something extra. I've learned, so today I know something more than what I knew yesterday. And I'm not just saying this for the sake of this presentation, I actually truly mean it. And that's not just what it is about lifelong learning. Lifelong learning here is basically a skill which allows you to take the problems upon yourself. So when I mentioned to you the story of Sir James Dyson, see, he was already out of college, out of university. He was working for several years before he got into this situation where he got so frustrated. And although it was not his degree, not his area of technical competency, but he started studying about it. Although it took him 5,127 attempts, failed prototypes, before he could come at the correct prototype that he envisaged, that this is exactly the perfect prototype, he continued learning, evolving, and working on it. That's, in nutshell, what lifelong learning is all about. One basic feature about lifelong learning is to be humble. So when you are in a group of people who keep saying, oh, I know it, oh, I know it, so when that's basically plugging, the opportunity to grow and know more. Humility is when you say, oh, there is still more to know, there is still more to learn. That's what humility is all about. And although this is humility which says, oh, there is more to know and more to learn, you will still have the confidence, because you know, even if you don't know something, you will know it because you have the ability to learn, right? So the confidence stays despite you being very humble and accepting that you did not know it or you don't know it, but you can know it if you want to know it. So I can do it if I try, because I have the ability to learn. The minute I start learning how to do it, I can do it. And that's the confidence which you carry with you. And that also means that you don't restrict yourself to one field or what you're doing, but you actually go beyond the borders of anything and everything there is to know, because learning does not come with a tag of, you know, only electronics. In my case, for instance, I can actually learn about nutrition science or anything else, whichever it is that excites me. And when you know more and more, it actually sharpens your decision making skills, which is again something which you will need. So, this is the last topic which I'm going to briefly touch, because this topic by itself is a huge topic and I can spend 1 hour talking about it. Of course, we don't have so much time here, and I've already spoken enough. Ethics, since I mentioned decision making, since I talked to you about technology, and I also showed you something about in the first few slides about negative impact to the society. It is very, very important to understand what ethics is and how it is becoming more and more relevant, much more relevant now in Industry 4.0 than it was in 3.0. So, in a very simple line, technology is nothing but making new stuff, right? Or improving upon the existing ones. And of course, now technology has penetrated lives. I mean, even the smallest, simplest baby will eat food if there is a video game playing on the mobile phone in front of him, right? So that's how far technology has gone in. And of course, you can actually see the baby growing inside the womb, or you can actually send proteins inside the body, which can actually take pictures while the whole thing travels inside your circulatory system, and when it finally comes out of your body, you can actually scan and see what was going on. So that's how much technology has penetrated our life. But then with that kind of a technology, there is also something that we call ethics, which is about making sure that the technology does not cause undesirable activities in human life. It does not do things which can be long term detrimental or damaging to the nature. There are several questions around it. I'll skip those, but I'll just show some of these examples of what I just said. So, for example, the technology of image processing, which was invented long back now, it has an ability to help in diagnosing cancer cells, right? The same technology, and it is being used today because it eliminates the chance of human error where a human being is actually going through the thousands of the results which come out, and trying to see that tiny evidence of cancerous cell growing in any one of those reports. So there is a big chance of human error, but the artificial intelligence sitting on top of an image processing can immediately pick up the malignant cancerous cells, and the result can be generated much sooner than a human being would. So there is a big use for image processing and artificial intelligence, but then the same technology is also being used for misused as image morphing, right? So there is more such examples. Voice assisted applications, for instance. So the Siri was actually a technology which was originally invented not for us or you to play the games, or to be to use it just like that. It was originally done for the disabled people, for the blind people. But it's the same technology, and people have been using it, and now the hackers have used it as a biometric hacking system, right? Online gaming. So online gaming can have a very good use as gamified learning for school children, but then it also increases the possibility of cyberbullying. It has already done that. For 3D printed human organs, as I said, right, it can end human trade, right? It can treat disabled people, it can end human trade. But then people are also using that as a way to look better or look the way they want to, even if they don't need to, right? So cosmetic surgeries will see a big spike in future, because this is going to make them. So for example, I can say, oh, I don't like my leg the way it is, it hurts, it pains so much, let me get rid of this leg, let me get a 3D printed leg attached, which I can use to climb Mount Everest, right? So people can go crazy, they can do anything. Deep brain stimulation was a technology which was invented to treat Alzheimer and Parkinson's, but people are trying to use this to become superhuman. What I mean to say here is that deep brain stimulation is basically working with electrical signals which are sent out from outside of your brain, and then they allow you to do things which you otherwise, which you are limited to do as a human being. But then, if you start using this external neural support on top of your brain activity, then you can it's almost like being drugged, right? You can do impossible things, you can remember more things than you should possibly remember, or you can process a lot more than you can or you should. So that's where the misuse lies. Drone, while it is an excellent way to improve agricultural productivity, it is also a way for unmanned warfare to happen. And it can be so tiny, like a shape of a fly, that it will easily go unnoticed. So that makes you more vulnerable. So there are several such ways where technology is very, very useful, but there is a chance for misuse, which is why I talked about ethics. Because, and I know you would wonder, what can we do, ma'am? What can we really do? So of course, that's not really for you to stop from happening, but there is a need for better policies, better rules, better guidelines, where when the technology is given to common man, it also comes with a condition of when it should be used and how it should be used, and when it should not be used. So the governments and the policies have to determine this fine thin line where the technology is useful or it can become misused for the human technology. So I think I will just end with this. I can skip this story. I'll end with this slide, which is where I want all of you to be enthusiastic students. All of you all of you have to show enthusiastic attitude towards engineering. Don't go to your classroom just because there is a lecture that will eventually make you an engineer with a degree, but go to your classroom because you're actually learning to be a problem warrior, and that's what will define you, no matter where you are, no matter what you decide to do. So with this I will end, and I'm happy to take more questions. I would want to know if this presentation was useful, if there was something which everybody learned. If you go back with five new points which you learned through this presentation, then it was definitely worthy of the time you gave me by listening to me, and I'll not feel guilty that I took your time. Questions?
I don't think we have more questions, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, ma'am. Like, how long will it take modern day student to gain the skills needed to work in the new industries?
So just like with engineering and technical knowledge, you have a time, right? So you say, okay, in 4 years I will be an engineer because I will go in after my 12th, and 4 years I will do a lot of learning around my discipline, and by the end of it, I will have a degree which will call me an engineer. So there is no such timed degree that you are getting with the skills also. Skill is something which evolves, which gets developed, right? It's not something which I can hand over to you and I say, okay, now that I've given you the skill, now you're a master of this skill. It doesn't really get transferred from one person to another. It is a habit, it is a way of doing things which evolves and develops on its own. Also, the list of skills is really, really long and huge. but I unfortunately I don't have the slide here right now. Most of these skills are actually interconnected to each other. So with a lot of self learning and self management, you can grow into several skills simultaneously. So you can, while you become better with your time management, your leadership, your individual self management, your behavioral aspect, your collaborative aspect, you also automatically become better leaders, and you automatically become better learners, right? So several skills are mostly interconnected, and when you start developing one, the others start to follow and weave themselves. So with that, the short answer for your question would be that the basic time to begin the skill is now. So if you have, and it's not that you are at a zero level, right? Each one of you from birth till now has already developed some level of any of these skills. You just have to identify some of them and start practicing them. With respect to communication, for instance, each one of you can start reading books. Hmm? When you start reading books, you start learning more. When you start talking to people, when you start working on projects, you can start questioning things. So curiosity, questioning, observation happens. The more you are focused and attentive towards these things, the faster these skills will grow. So by the time you are out of your college, you would carry technical knowledge as well as a lot of awareness, which is exactly what we are trying to do also through IUCEE. We are giving you that kind of exposure to skill development side by side. When you start doing projects alongside your academic courses, you actually learn a lot of those skills along with that when you participate in these student summits which we are doing. So we are trying to facilitate and expedite and give you the necessary system which will help you develop your skills. By the time you finish your engineering, you would probably be way better than many others who have not engaged into these skill buildings. But it happens, it continues, it, you get better at something over your lifetime, but you still have to reach a good point at the start. If you reach I mean, if you go completely unaware, you will have a difficult time in the workplace. But if you are going to do what you are doing right now, you will be better off than many others. Also, create a debates club. I had a debate club in my engineering courses, and we used to meet in the evening once a week, and we used to generally debate on anything, politics or anything, just random topics. They were not technical topics, general debates. But that allowed us to become better communicators, and it kind of stimulated thinking process in our body. So yeah, these are some of the ways you can be better skilled.
Thank you, ma'am, for the very informative session. It has been great listening to your words of wisdom. I would really like to thank you for taking out your precious time. And also, I would like to thank all the attendees for attending the session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Purnaditi. I'm really, you know, I want to applaud you and your entire team at KLETech for taking this initiative and for bringing this kind of a session to so many other students. So that's really commendable. And I thank you for this and good job, really.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.